the difficulty we've often encountered in the past is who's the boss? To quote that delightful 1980s sitcom from America, it's like whose choice or whose decision is the trump card and actually decides what we do, rather than it being a bit of a discussion or a debate, or coming to see each other's point of view and figure out which one is actually going to create greater. That's where.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Relationships Done Different podcast with Justine, Christopher, Melanie,
That's me.
and Paula.
Woo! We're cheering you, Justine.
Oh, awesome. I kind of find this topic that we're going to talk about in this podcast interesting. It's creating business with your honey. Now, personally, I don't know if I could do this. I don't know if it would be a make or break situation. I am on my computer probably 24 hours a day. My husband is a builder, so it's very, very different. He's on the tools. So he gets really annoyed when I call him maybe a few times a day, because he has to get off the ladder, take I don't even know how to call the tools, the saw or the screwdriver. He'd be annoyed with me saying that. And he's like, it's not, and it's a bone of contention for him, because he gets really annoyed that I'm like, oh, what do you want for dinner? And he's having to get down off the ladder, off the tools, whatever he's like building. So personally, I'm not sure if we could create a business together. I think we would have to really stretch our muscles, like with allowance. And I don't know, but do you guys Christopher, with your husband, I guess you do have a business together. Like, how do you navigate that? Or do you guys get pissed off with each other? Or if you do get pissed off, what do you do?
Yeah, we do. The difficulty we've often encountered in the past is who's the boss? To quote that delightful 1980s sitcom from America, it's like whose choice or whose decision is the trump card and actually decides what we do, rather than it being a bit of a discussion or a debate, or coming to see each other's point of view and figure out which one is actually going to create greater. That's where that's one of the pitfalls. The other pitfall can quite often be just having a bit of a boundary of when it's work and when it's playtime. Do you know, like eventually every meal you have at home together, every shower you might have together, every dinner out you have together, you end up talking about business and less about just your day or your thoughts and feelings or whatever's going on for you. That's the other side of it that is tricky, and you have to learn to navigate. And that's sort of what we've done in that particular example, is gone, no, let's have date night.
Yeah.
And
so
leave that there.
So you run an antique business together, just one of your
Yes.
probably many businesses. What who is boss? I'm just curious.
So so one of the things that I facilitate within Access Consciousness is called Right Voice for You, which is one of the other specialties similar to Relationship Done Different that we're talking about here. And there's an area of that class that we used to talk about called Melody and Harmony. And it's all about recognizing who's sort of singing the tune and driving things forward and making the choices for the direction, and who is harmonizing with that choice and adding to it so that it's more dynamic and more rich and more powerful. We tend to trade off that role of being the melody based on who has the greatest experience or the greatest love for that particular area. Like, an example, my husband's an interior designer. He's worked for the top architects in the world for years. He's brilliant in that area. I like to decorate, I like to design, but I'm not as good at it as he is. So when it comes to some of those choices and decisions, I defer to him because his awareness is greater there, and let him make those choices. and vice versa. I tend to handle a lot more of the finance side of things, or say marketing our business is a lot more my strong suit. So acknowledging where each other is strong and where you can contribute to the other person being even stronger. Like, example, when we bought our first house together, it was actually really difficult and we fought a lot, because I would find a house and go, oh my God, it's beautiful, I love it, it's what I want. But he can look at a house and go, it's not what you want yet, but actually this could become something really cool if we change this and change this and change this. You know, he has that design vision. But I would fall in love with the walk-in robe in this particular house. And he'd be like, yeah, but the house is too expensive. We can build you the walk-in robe and make a lot more money by improving the house. So eventually what I realized was the brilliance in this one phrase: honey, you choose.
Wow.
So I just stepped out of it and went, whatever house you want. And he picked a house that terrified me. I looked at this house and I went, oh, wow, I guess I could get an apartment in town. It was just not the house that I would have chosen. But what he did with it and what he turned it into was really amazing. And that wouldn't have been possible without being willing to not being the one calling the shots all the time, and just go, okay, you actually have an awareness of something here that I don't, so you run with it. Like in your situation, Justine, you're amazing with public relations and journalism, all those areas where your partner, James, probably isn't. He's great at what he does with houses, with construction, with building. That is actually a recipe for a great business, because you have complementary skills and talents that could add to each other if you let each other have your separate provinces of authority or of strength.
I love that. And it's actually quite true. I step back a lot when it comes to houses. At the moment, we moved from Australia to Chattanooga and we couldn't find a house. Eventually, we found a house that's very Mad Men style, whereas I'm from Bondi Beach, Sydney, Australia. Really love that, like Hampton chic look. This is like Mad Men, totally. You need a cardigan and a cigar to come into our house and a cocktail glass. But he saw the potential in it. And I really have left the decorating to him. Like, he'll find little bits and pieces. I'm like, oh God, that's like bright orange or bright pink or bright green, or he just painted the door pink. And somehow it's all working together because he has that vision for it. So yeah, I love how you describe that harmony and melody, I guess, in like kind of letting that person play to their strengths or just stepping back. And I do notice, like, I don't fight him at all with the houses or with the decorating, because that does seem like that's what he thrives on. Melanie or Paula, what about you guys? Have you had any experience with business with your honey? Or
I mean, I think the thing that I actually am like, wow, I'm actually loving hearing both of, Justine and Chris talk about this, because I'm not married. And I have been married, but I'm not currently. And what's interesting is one of the things that I learned from my marriage and a lot of my other relationships, if I'll look at them, is like the difference between a relationship and a creationship. And truly, my most successful relationships have been, and I don't mean successful in terms of longevity, but I just mean like in the fun and the ease, has been when I've been able to like have a relationship that allows me to create greater, right? So like being with that person, I can create more than if I were single, right? Like, and I can create a lot single, don't get me wrong. So it's like having that other energy introduced to my life that is like, maybe we aren't in the same industry, or, we might financially be in different areas of our lives, or even with regard to our age, like we might be in different places. But like, to know that when we come together, like it empowers me to create more, or it empowers my partner to create more, is like, that's so the target of, as I look at relationships now and in my future, like that's what I'm asking for. And I love, like, Chris, how you're talking about the honoring of Drew, and like, yeah, you may disagree, I guess, on the like base level, but when you actually look on the underside of that and you're like, okay, I trust that you choosing this is going to create more, like it's going to create greater for both of us. So I'm just going to like hands off and trust that it's going to work out. As much as we're like, yeah, like we're giving up control, there is this energy of like, I actually trust you in like your choice and your creation. And I think too, like, even when you were saying, Justine, like, I don't think, you know, like you and your husband's industries are very different. Like, I still see where you probably, without knowing it, contribute so much to the way that maybe he markets his business or the way that he talks to people about his business. And, you know, like you said, ultimately his industry is helping you both to have a home that creates greater for both of you. I don't know. That's like, that's the thing, like kind of sitting back and looking at this and being like, yeah, that's actually what I'm asking for, regardless of whether it's marriage or not. It's like that willingness to trust in my partner's creative capacities and to like ultimately just generate more.
Yeah.
And I just want to jump in and add something here though, with what you're talking about with trust. The greatest gift for me in this with trust is actually allowing them the freedom and the space to fail. Because a lot of people use the word trust and they talk about, well, I trust that they'll do a good job, or I trust that it'll turn out well. What if you didn't even have that on it as a parameter? Like, recognize that this is important to them and it's an area where they feel strongly about it, and let them choose, let them make their own mistakes and develop their own awareness, and trust, an even greater sense of trust that the universe has your back and that things in the long run will turn out, even if you end up with an ugly house.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. And I remember, you know what Simone always talks about, who is one of the kind of co-creators, co-founders of Relationship Done Different, how she says, your life is your business. Like, we're talking about business and honey and stuff. And I was just thinking about that. It's kind of going into another topic, but like our whole life is a business, with the kids, with everything. And when I have to work a lot more probably than James does at the moment, because he's very project-based, he could finish a house and not find another house for another couple of months. So at the moment today, I've been so busy creating Global Bars Day and a few other projects. And he's looking after our daughter's quarantine, because it's a new crazy world. Someone had COVID in a class and they quarantined the whole class, and they're home. And so he's looking after our daughter today. So I was just thinking of that, that business is your life. And he's allowing me to create and make the money today whilst he cares kind of for our daughter. Melanie, you've got like a little bit of experience working with your honey before. What did you learn out of that? Previous ones, yeah. What did you learn out of that, from that?
Well, no, from this conversation, it's very apparent, is whatever it is that adds to your life. And like, you know, the way you and Christopher have spoken too, it's like what creates more, and watching it filter in to your personal life, which ultimately is something that you have with a partner. But I think the biggest thing for me, because a lot of people do, especially when you've been in relationships that you might have done business with someone and it didn't work, they think the business killed it. Like that would be one, like if you spoke to a random person, they say, oh, never work with your partner. And I have a different point of view, even though I am single and obviously not in business with a partner because I am single. I would approach it different now. I would value myself more. I would value, because when you were talking about, I actually want to listen back to this podcast already because of the melody and harmony thing. I think I just
that was brilliant.
I think I lost my brains when that happened, because I started to like see parts of myself and stuff. One of my biggest stumbling blocks throughout life was how different my brain works. And that can be very difficult in an average, normal, not in a business relationship or in any other forms of communication. So one of the biggest things for me was to learn over time ways to communicate, and also to not make myself wrong. I can see the start and finish very fast, and I can do all the bits in between, and other people just don't see it the same way. And so I really used those experiences to actually look at valuing myself more to begin with, and what I would like to create now, because it's never like either or. It's never, oh, that didn't work, never do it again. Like you get so much awareness from everything that you create. And it's actually really wonderful listening to you talk about different ways in which having, you know, like Christopher with a relationship and a business, and then just even kind of looking at Justine and James, and I'm like kind of going, wow, like it really is about adding to your life. I mean, that's the best thing that I could say. But like similar things to what Christopher was talking about, the blurred lines of when it's business and when it's personal life and things like that. But there's a part of where we are naturally kind of compulsive creators. A lot of the people that I work with definitely are anyway. So finding that off button is actually quite a hard thing to do, even when you're sitting by yourself, because you're always looking at the next thing. But it's about what brings you joy, what creates more in your life and what adds to it. And like, I think my biggest takeaway really is learning more about myself. I mean, that's all I can say, really. It's been a gift to actually really kind of break out of the mold and actually have a look at what it is that I am actually good at, because I had a lot of judgments about the way I did business. I grew up like I was about 14, 15, 16. We had a business studies teacher, and we had her about 3 times a week, and she'd stand me in front of the class for 45 minutes straight and tell me I knew nothing. I was going to be a nobody. So like straight away, when you start moving into business, and it was quite a big project that I was working on, you're like, holy crap, like I know nothing. So I actually used it as a process to really kind of facilitate myself into something completely different. But like that changed my life in that regard, because I had to see, not as a business person or as a partner or as a mother or as anything, but as actual as a Melanie, and actually look at the relationship I had with myself in regards to the judgments that I had of me in business, me as a partner, me as a mother, me as a daughter, me, but all the different kind of relationships that even with colleagues and stuff like that. I hope I'm making sense, because that melody and harmony thing just kind of totally took me down like memory lane and kind of looking at stuff going, wow, I need to look at this a little different. But yeah.
No, I think it's the other thing too that I was looking at is where like when we're talking about relationships done different, it truly is like all relationships. So whether we're applying these to marriages or friendships or business relationships, you know, we happen to be talking about doing business with your honey, but also like I've done business with some of my dearest and closest friends, and I had to really work, you know, and the businesses close or things shift and change and move on, or we sell the businesses. You know, I've been in a lot of different situations, and it took me a long time to realize that just because a business fails, it doesn't mean the relationship has failed. Like it doesn't mean anything for the relationship. And I think that is like, I think if people are listening to that, it seems really simple, but it's also, Mel, to your point, like it doesn't actually mean anything. Like the relationship can still be glorious, and the relation, you know, maybe the business fails, or the business may be incredibly successful, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the relationship is healthy and happy and fun and joyful, you know? So like I think it's like this interesting thing where like if your relationship is great, you assume going into business with this person is going to be really great. And that's not actually true. Like you still have to follow your awareness, and you still have to ask questions like, is this going to work? And that's the thing, is it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything about you, about them, about the business, about your lives, about your success as business people, what you know or don't know. It's just an experience that you're going into together. And I think that's like something that's really important to just acknowledge in this conversation, is that like they are 2 separate things that we sometimes bring together, and we like smash them all together, and then you can't find out where one ends and the other begins. That's not actually true. It doesn't have to be like that, is what I would say. You have a choice.
Yeah, I love it. And I guess we'd love to know from our listeners listening to this podcast too, like, have you done business with your honey? Like, what did you learn? What was your melodies? What was your harmonies? Like, let us know in the comments. This will be posted on Instagram, on Facebook, and I'm going to do a shameless plug. Instagram, follow us on Relationships Done Different, and the same with Facebook, and more information at www.relationshipsdonedifferent.com. And the book, I'm on a roll, guys. Relationship, Are You Sure You Want One? That's how this all started. So that's it. Voila. Thanks for being with us all today, and we'll be back again very soon.